I don't know, you might throw it away after.
I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Finance Committee, the Parish of Ascension, on Monday, June the 13th. All of the councilmen are present. There are no chairs additions, and I'd like to advise that at this time, if a member of the public would like to make comment on any item on the agenda, please come forward, sign a comment card, turn it into the secretary. We also need to begin now with the invocation and the pledge.
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the blessings you bestowed upon us. And as we gather today, we ask, oh God, that you look upon those families that lost loved ones in a horrific event in Orlando, the taking of many lives. We know, God, that you're the one that keep a country safe, that you bless a nation, that you touch those, oh God, who follow your credence, follow, oh God, your will. And we ask, oh Lord, that you bless those in Florida and Orlando, for the Lord, those that lost loved ones, and that you continue to protect and watch over this nation. As we do the people's business tonight, oh God, we do it with reverence to the call that you place us. We do it with honor, and we do it in a servant's heart for the people of Ascension Parish. And we thank you, and we give you all the glory and praise. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I need to make a correction to the secretary. Aaron Lawler is not present. I missed him. I apologize. I did hear from him earlier today, and he let me know he would not be. Our 4th of July meeting has been moved to July the 11th due to the holiday on the 4th, so that we don't have an issue with attendance on that Monday. Now, having covered all of that, we'll move along to item number 6, the presentation of the 2015 parish audit by our friends from Falk and Winkler, Tommy Lejeune and Jacob Wagasback. Jacob being the new partner at Falk and Winkler. Congratulations to you.
Thank you, Council. We're here this evening to present you with the results of the 2015 financial audit. Once again, it was a pleasure working with your staff and management. Very cooperative and forthcoming with information in a timely manner. So what we have for you tonight is a small packet that's in the front cover of the larger document. We're going to stick to those 8 slides there, and they'll also be presented on the monitor for you. All right. Starting off on slide 1 here, we have presented the revenues of the parish for the 4-year period, 5-year period, 2011 to 2015. Just looking at some trend analysis here, you see, there's a large spike over that 5-year period, going from just greater than about $70 million up this year, tipping $100 million for the first time, I guess, in the parish's history. The vast majority of that is sales taxes, which is represented in the blue area of the graph. That sales tax totaled about just under $54 million for 2015, and we'll see how that breaks down further in the presentation. But that sales tax is up about $19 million in that 5-year period. Looking at the next greatest section of revenues, or revenue source, is the green area of the graph, which is your property taxes. Property taxes into the year just shy of $30 million, which is up about $8 million over that 5-year period. So that's the two big areas that are recurring revenue streams that represent the largest growth in terms of revenues for the parish. Just as a side note, The yellow represents some governmental grants. That's right about $10 million for 2015, which is a very significant chunk of money. About half of that was for capital-related projects and about half operational in nature. Moving on to the second slide. Here's a breakdown of your sales tax collections by restriction. You see at the bottom, the blue area, that represents about $26 million, or about 48% of your sales tax collections. That is unrestricted in nature and funds the general operations of the parish. So that's the money that goes into the general fund and is used, for management and kind of your discretionary spending based upon the budget that you adopt.
Has a significant part, too, that supports your jail system, so it's a lot of mandated costs beyond. So when you hear just basic operations or general administration, that's not all what it covered, but it does cover a lot of state-mandated costs for law enforcement, the judicial system that you support. So a lot of dollars, even though that looks big, does get carved out. That's beyond your control.
Yep. Looking at the next area, the green represents your drainage revenues. Sales tax collections for drainage purposes were about $14.5 million. That's followed by the next largest area is roads, which totaled about $8.8 million in 2015, and then followed by fire protection, which is about $4.5 million. And that's over all three districts that collect the sales tax. So that'll bring you to your about $54 million for 2015, and that it's actually down about a 0.01% from prior year. So it looks like things have pretty much leveled out, over 2014, 2015. You've seen some growth just with construction and other things, but looks like that peak has finally been hit, and we'll see where it goes from here.
It's still a very good number.
Looking at the next slide, slide 4, this breaks down your expenditures of the parish in 3 different areas: operational, capital projects, and then debt service. The small red area at top is debt service. It's about $7 million per year is what it costs you to retire your principal payments on your bonds and that related interest. Looking at the green area, that's your capital projects. As you see, that goes up and down year to year, and that's all based upon planned projects. To me, the impressive part here is the blue area where, although you've grown by your revenues by such a large sum of money over the last 5 years, if you look at operating revenues, and that's the blue area, you see that it's averaged out about $49,000 over 5 years, and for the year it's $52 million. So really, no significant growth operationally, where your revenues have grown very significantly, and it's allowing you to put some money, in the bank for future use. Whether how you spend that is kind of going to be on your determination, if it's projects or whatnot.
But it has stayed, you can see, pretty flat for a 4-year period of time, which is not easy to do.
Looking at slide 5, just real quickly, this is the liabilities of the parish government. The green area represents your long-term debts. That's made up mostly of bonds. Of about the $85 million in long-term obligations you have, about $75 million is related to bonds you've issued. 66 of that is public improvement related for the most part, and then you've got another $9 million you owe related to the library. But the blue section is what you owe, at December 31, basically for operating expenses. You'll see that it's really small in comparison with the cash you have on hand. So liquidity is in great condition at this point in time. Then slide 6 and slide 7 actually work together. Slide 6 is in a graph format. Slide 7 is more numerical in nature. So whatever you prefer viewing here. But what this breaks down is the fund balance of the parish's operation funds, and how that money has to be used. As you see, the unrestricted amount, which is your general fund and sales tax fund, has grown to about $31 million. That represents the blue piece of the graph. So that's really the money that if you wanted to do a special project and you don't have a dedicated source of revenue, that's where you have to grab it from. That's also the piece of money that if you have a storm or something like that, that's the money you have to grab it from. That's the general fund and sales tax number 1, which ended at about $31 million for 2015. So if you're on the graphs, the green area, that is your restricted operating amounts, which you'll see at the middle of the numerical slide on page 7. This amounts to about $97 million in restricted funds. Of that amount, of the $97 million, you have about $42.5 million that's related to drainage operations. The second largest area there is for fire protection. Overall, 3 fire protection districts, you're right under about $20 million in restricted funds. And then you have a fair amount of money, just shy of $19 million tied up into Lamar-Dixon and ACUD number 2, which is your enterprise-related funds. On the graphs, the yellow area is the restricted amounts that's related to capital outlay. So this is your drainage capital project and then roads, and also some non-major capital outlay funds that you operate as well. From a drainage capital outlay perspective, you've got about $27 million at year end that's tied up for construction of drainage projects, and then in roads you're at about $19.5 million that you have available for roads. So, with that, your total fund balances over all funds is just shy of $190 million, which is quite a large number considering where you were 5 years ago. But I think things look really, really good in terms of parish finances.
Go to page 7. Yeah, I just wanted to point out, you may not be able to catch that on the screen, but $190 million is obviously a lot of money, in terms of net worth, which is this represents the parish's net worth, and your cash balance, almost basically in investments, approximate this number. But what's important as you look at this, you look at that second set of dollars, that $97 million. That's the accumulation of net worth where you have a parish dedication in terms of taxes. So it's fire protection, drainage, where you don't quite have the same level of discretion in terms of its spending, that it has to follow that particular purpose. So you got $42.6 million in drainage funds. That's solely all you can do with it is drainage-related activities. So $190 million sounds like a significant sum of money, but you've got a lot of restricted types of dollars that you have an obligation in terms of where you can spend it. Same with capital outlay at $56 million. That you can use it in those resources in those particular descriptions. The real discretionary money is the $31 million up at the top. So as you look at it, you almost have to keep it in the context of just what's discretionary and flexible to use as that's lawful for you to use, and then there's other things where there's a legal obligation to spend, typically in an appropriate fashion, which would follow those descriptions. Good net worth, but has some drawstrings on it.
So that wraps up the financial aspect of our audit. Additionally, one thing we look at during the audit is compliance with laws and regulations, state laws, and then also grant agreements and things like that. We do have 4 reportable items that we do have in the report. Two of these items are repeat items from a prior year. The first item is criminal court fund deficit. This was something that happened in 2014 actually, where some dollars were I guess accidentally given to the criminal court fund, and they now have to be paid back to another fund. That fund is part of our audit, so we do have a requirement to report that fund deficit for the criminal court fund.
And basically what happened was that fund, you're directed to submit certain funds to the criminal court activity, and you were directed in error. So it wasn't that something that happened internally in your administration. It was something that happened externally by another group that basically directs the disposal or the use of those funds. So it didn't happen sort of in your internal processes, but it led to a deficit in this particular fund, which is a violation of the state budget law. That's why it's reported here.
Secondly, daily deposits. By state law, you are supposed to deposit any funds on hand on a daily basis. Where practical is a caveat in that. We did go around to various locations throughout the parish where you collect cash and receive payment for things such as rentals, being a big one. We did find that they were holding cash on hand for some what we thought were large periods of times. Sometimes it's 7 to 10 days in that range. And under state law, you know, we felt that that was a violation of the state law of not making those daily deposits and not getting them into your depositing bank. Item number 3, one of the things we also did this year was went out to Lamar Dixon and just kind of looked at operationally how things were being processed out there. We did note that segregation of duties over cash receipts was an issue, and that you basically had, you know, one to two people that were handling most of the transactional aspects of that center, which we did not find that anything was missing or anything of that nature, but we did have some I guess duties that we wanted to separate as far as how cash was being handled at the center. So we made some recommendations, and things have been put in place by your management and staff to segregate those properly. And then the last item is Section 8 reporting for the HUD fund that you operate. There are some reporting requirements with HUD that have been in the work. We've actually been in the works to get this resolved for a number of months now, and it's just taking a little longer than we thought it was. But it is in the middle of being resolved at this point in time.
The electronic system with HUD is just not an easy thing to navigate, so we're moving through it. All right. Sort of high level from our perspective, certainly the book's a lot bigger. You know, it gets into the 300-page range, so you know, I need some night reading for you. But that's kind of a high level financially. Looks very good, and then basically a few technical issues to address, and from a procedural standpoint, we were very satisfied with what we saw.
Gentlemen, does anyone have any questions? Mr. Bill.
Oh, thank you. Well, first, let's see, so you had these are findings, I presume, here?
Yes,
now. So where are they reported? So I have the letter here, but I don't see them in that letter. Maybe I missed it, I just scanned it here, but,
They're on page 241
oh, in the book?
in the book.
Yes, sir, in the big book.
So they're not in the summary
No,
letter?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, that's simply a required communication. As auditors, we're required to make.
Okay.
In the big book, you'll see it starts on page 241, so they get into more description there.
So I understand we have a good reserve fund balance, and I think that's good and healthy myself.
Right.
And however, I wanted to know if you looked at the individual operating accounts. I mean, you know, I don't know what the magic number is, 3 months, 4 months of revenue in a reserve account. Did you look at individual accounts, or did you just look at what the parish has as a total?
More globally, and looking how the general fund, what it had in its account at year end. Some national associations, they usually recommend about 3 to 6 months fund balance. So that's kind of the rule of thumb that we use as well.
And you look at those other restricted funds, and since you have such a tax dedication or obligation associated with them, you know, what you accumulate there can get larger because, I mean, you have a dedicated activity that you have to fund. You know, look at the general fund. It's got about $20 million a year in annual costs, and then you've got other funds that it supports to the tune of about $15, $16 million in this past year. So you've got, you know, 36, 37 million in annual costs, and you got 31 million in the bank. So you sort of exceed that benchmark. It's obviously pretty healthy. It's come a long way. I mean, my first year doing the audit, I think it was around 3 million. Going back some time, but but it's certainly given you a lot of flexibility from a financial perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kluart?
Yeah, hey, I want to thank y'all for the report. I know we set in on the major session, looking at everything. I just want to reflect back on the, I know the HUD has been, it's a battle to follow that spreadsheet and everything, so you're not the only guys, we're not the only guys that have trouble with it, so. On the Lamar Dixon issues, and I'm pretty sure that that's been cleared up, both those issues that we have in front of us there.
Yep, I'm expecting that to be resolved, based on what I'm hearing and the things the activity that's going on since we sort of discussed it with the administration.
Yeah, and as y'all alluded earlier, the criminal court thing, that's something, from several years back.
Right.
We inherited from the taxing authority.
Right, and I think the way that payout plan's gonna work, that'll be a technical finding that you'll have for a few more years. So it's not gonna go away immediately, because you're gonna be owed some money back, so, yeah. So, I mean, it's gonna take some time to resolve, so that will stay in the report for a few years, because that fund doesn't have a positive net worth, and that's just clear, that point's a violation of the State Budget Act. So until that gets righted, it'll be a required reporting finding.
I just want to bring to everybody's attention on page 6, when you talked about the discretionary fund and the fund balance, discretionary area, that within that, although it looks like a lot of money, we have several divisions of parish government for services that we provide to the citizens of the parish that have evolved over years, that we fund, that don't have dedicated funds. And we actually go in and pump up several other divisions that have dedicated funds, but that budget's never made it. So that's not necessarily a lot of free money there.
Right.
And I know most of us have lived through several bad storms here, and we sucked down a lot of money waiting several years for FEMA to pay us back, and we gotta have the money to get through that. So I just want to make everybody understand that that's not a lot of money
It's solid,
that's at our
it's very healthy.
discretion.
Yeah, I think it's solid, very healthy, it's very prudent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilman Savage?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Tommy, et al. It's at first blush, a very, looks like thorough and professional report, and you're right, we've got some reading to do now. But for tonight, follow up on Randy's question, and I think it may even be the same question if I understand what he was asking and what you were responding. Under reportable items number 2 and 4, is it safe to say that those two are connected at the hip?
Not at the hip, but they do have some involvement with each
Right.
other.
Yes.
Well, a good
Same
part,
location.
a good part of not making the deposits is what's, and we'll be able to read about that in
Yeah.
the big expanded,
Would you
as far as what
finance-
recommendations you made to Lamar Dixon and so
Right.
forth.
Your finance department has basically took the process of collecting funds and revamped that over the last, say, 3 to 4 months.
Okay, and for the record, because I've gotten questions about this, you stated that nothing is missing. By that, you mean money.
Correct.
Correct.
So the money's all accounted for, it just wasn't being deposited in, I don't even consider
Used to
frankly
shore
7 to
up.
10 days. I think you used the word as a large period of time, but nonetheless, the law requires daily. I can understand that you have to report that.
Right, when it gets a week, 2 weeks, I mean, it needs to be put in your
Right.
bank quicker.
Yeah, after all, we can get a few tenths of a percent
And-
interest, right?
Right,
Or
and
something.
it was held in a safe, so, I mean, it wasn't like it was just out on a desk.
I got you, I got you.
But nonetheless, the state requires that local municipalities deposit funds.
Yeah,
on a daily basis.
thank you, fellas.
One quick question.
Councilman Lambert?
Yeah, as far as not being in compliance, is there any fines for that? That's just a technical?
Yeah, technical. The only issue that's sort of new is the state, and in particular the legislative auditor, is starting to monitor repeat findings. And they have different categories they can place them in, but if you have a finding that's just chronic and repetitive, there are some sanctions that they can put against a government, particularly state funding and holding money back.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, the one thing that they're trying to force local governments to do is, if if you have an audit issue, resolve it timely. Don't let it linger for 5 years.
Gotcha.
So,
Appreciate
this
it.
one, you know, you look at the first one, it's kind of a unique deal.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, gentlemen? Thank you, Tommy, very much. We all appreciate the great opportunity to read ourselves late into the night. Thank you very much.
So we thank you guys for the opportunity.
It's
It's
a
a lot.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Number 7, the approval of the purchase of 1 new fire engine pumper and 1 new fire tanker by Ascension Parish Fire District 3 from Louisiana State Contract. Total price for both trucks, $749,838. Chief Stewart, do you have any comment you want to make on this? And welcome to the meeting tonight. Thank you for being here.
Again, it's a state contract purchase, and this is replacing 2 units that were retired.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson, second by Councilman Kluot. Any questions, gentlemen?
I just want,
Randy Kluot?
Madam Chair, just let everybody know that you hardly ever really retire a truck. Sometimes they move on to other people, and
That's
other
what,
services, other
right.
departments, other agencies.
these have reached a recommended service life that we go by, but somebody can always find a little use,
Right.
even after we're through with them.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, any objections? That motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mark. Number 8, intergovernmental agreement with Ascension Parish Sheriff's Office for the use of inmate labor at Lamar Dixon. Mr. Dawson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is for the inmate labor at Lamar Dixon for the normal maintenance and
So
upkeep.
moved, Madam Chairman.
I have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, a second by Councilman Kluot. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Number 9, the renewal of an agreement with A through Z Janitorial Service and Supply to perform janitorial services during and after events at Lamar Dixon.
Yes,
Mr.
Madam Chair,
Dawson?
exactly as it reads. This janitorial services help doing events to clean up and to maintain the property during the event.
Have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert,
Second.
second by Councilman Randy Kluot. Any questions? Any objections? Mr. Cagnolotti, did I see your hand go up? All right, any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 10, change order number 1, Lamar Dixon Sports Complex lighting, project number ENG-13-028, to deduct from the contract amount the sum of $1,895 and add 96 days to the contract. Good evening, sir. Thank you for being with us.
This is to add for rain delays, and we changed the scope of work twice. The first being we had to add work to create the pad large enough for the electrical building, and the second was we changed the location of the transformer to save money on the secondary lines to the electrical building.
Have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson.
Second.
Second by Councilman Travis Turner. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Madam Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can I say a word?
Absolutely, sir.
I would just like to thank Mr. Terry for his service. He has moved on to brighter and bigger things, and he's done us a great job, and I just want to tell him publicly we appreciate his service. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and that is indeed true. Thank you so much. Number 11, certificate of substantial completion, project number ENG-13-028, Lamar Dixon Sports Complex lighting.
It is complete.
'Tis complete. You say so. All right. Have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Bill Dawson. I just appointed that one. I think that was you I heard over there. All right, give it to whoever. Travis has got it then. Thank you all. And any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 12, certificate of substantial completion, project number ENG-16-085, governmental complex rear building.
This was to replace the roof on the rear building behind the new governmental complex. That's where we store a lot of our records. The contract was completed on time and with no additional money.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson, second by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 13, change order number 6 to the 2013 road maintenance project, project number ENG 13-012, to reduce the contract amount by $75,000. The exact amount that was previously added by change order number 4 for the work to be done on Bayou Terrace.
Motion.
And Ms.
Second.
Tacey Rabelay's got that one.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a motion by Councilman Kluot, and I think I heard a second. Second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any questions of Ms. Rabelay?
Give us a summary.
Oh, okay. This
You were
was-
gonna do that, weren't
I
you,
was
Tacey,
going
until
to.
they just jumped on those
Sorry.
motions? Go right ahead.
This money was added previously to do some patching work on Bayou Terrace, but subsequently we decided to remove the $75,000 and completely rebuild the road on a different contract to save the parish a little bit of money. So we had to take the patching work back off, and that's what this one does, is remove the $75,000.
Thank you so much. We have that motion and the second. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Number 14, change order number 7 to the 2013 road maintenance project, project number ENG-13-012, to officially remove Bayou Terrace from the project.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Kluot, second by Councilman Cagnolati. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 15, change order number 8 to the 2013 road maintenance project, project number ENG-13-012, balancing the change order to zero out the existing contract with F.G. Sullivan Jr. Contractor, LLC. Tacey, you want to let us know what have we done now?
Yes, ma'am. What we did here is we basically zeroed out the contract. We had a balance of a little over $1.2 million. We didn't fully use all of our items. We moved some work around, and essentially what most of this is all of Bayou Terrace. So we saved about $500,000 with Bayou Terrace, along with some other work. So what this does is just takes the remaining money that was left on the contract and takes it off, so that we have a zero balance in the contract. We can close the contract, close the project.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Kluot. Second by Councilman Cagnolati. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes, and congratulations on that.
Thank you so much.
Item number 16, certificate of substantial completion, project number ENG-13-012, the 2013 road maintenance project.
It is complete, finally.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Benny Johnson. We are thrilled to hear that. Long may it rest. Any questions? Any objections?
I'm gonna hold to myself on that. I'm gonna hold to myself.
Good job, Dempsey. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Hearing no objections, that motion passes. Item number 17, renewal of professional services contract with Curtis Environmental Services for performing services for ACUD number 1 on matters pertaining to water production and water distribution systems owned by the parish, $2,500 a month, not to exceed $30,000. Mr. Dawson?
Yes, Madam Chair. This is the normal contract for services of testing that has to be done by a certified lab for our water testing, wastewater testing that's required.
Motion by Councilman Benny Johnson,
Second.
second by Councilman Travis, Oliver Joseph over there, couldn't see him, I apologize. Second by Heath, and any questions? Have one from Mr. Dawson. Not that Mr. Dawson, this Mr.
Okay.
Dawson.
Yeah, to Mr. Dawson, I guess. But, you know, I'm looking at this, and it looks like this is based on a 2013 proposal. And secondly, it's a contract not for work performed, but it's just $2,500 a month, a flat rate. You know, I'm just wondering if you guys look at rebidding that or on any frequency. So this is based on a 3-year-old proposal.
We have looked at some other numbers. The amount has been increased over that particular time, and there's only, you know, little to no certified labs that actually have the ability to actually do that type of testing. So we did try to go out maybe a year or so ago, or maybe a couple of years ago, but there was just no other certified lab that could actually perform it. So we stuck with Curtis Environmental.
Well, I'm looking at this, and they third party, the certified lab is what the contract says. They don't do that themselves.
No, they don't do it themselves. They collect it and then they take it to a certified lab, so.
Well, I mean,
Okay.
anybody could do that, correct? Because they're bringing it to an outside lab, of our choosing, it says.
Yeah. Well, you're right. Okay, so the certified, they also do consulting for, I'm sorry, Councilman Dawson. You're right. There is a lab that's certified in the Baton Rouge area that they take it to. They also do consulting for us. They do collection for us. And at this point, we have not gone, we went out for another bid to get some more of their work done. The number that we can, I think the company was TNB, they actually gave us a kind of a proposal of what it would take to do the same work they did, and it was about $2,000 more a month for them to do the same work. So we stayed with that company.
So when did we go out for the RFQ or
It
RFP
wasn't
on that?
an RFQ, we just asked them to give us kind of a high-level proposal of what it would take for them to do the same work. You know, and when they came back with that particular number for the kind of consultations that we get, it just wasn't a good number at that particular time. So we can go out for another bid, and we will go out for another bid, but for the type of work that we have, the samples that we take, the number of samples that we take at this particular point, Curtis Environmental has been the most economical, and over the past several years, they have not increased their cost whatsoever.
So I guess my only comment is that, 3 years is, at some point in time, you would expect that you'd go out and rebid this. And secondly, I'm not used to seeing a flat rate where somebody does these number of activities. Usually it's based on what they do.
Yeah, and it's specific in the samples that they take, because according to the state, there's a certain number they must take every month.
Right.
So it's not like it's different work. They just have these samples that they take. They have to take it in for analysis and then send us a report back. So that's what they continually do. So they're able to actually get a cost on that particular number because it's not additional things. And what they also provide to us is kind of consultation to the staff, questions that we may have on certain things coming through. So they act as a consultant basis. And in a way, they're not even charging anything extra for that. It's kind of come along with it. So, and if I'm not mistaken, maybe it was a 3-year contract that we signed initially. So I have to go back and look at that because we can't renew it unless it's in the contract to allow us to renew it.
Mhm.
So we may be coming up on that date that we're required to go out for another bid on it.
Okay. Well, I see it was February of 2013 is
Yeah.
when this was originally contracted.
And what's the
Mr.
time?
Satterley.
Yeah, I'd like to do a follow-up question to Councilman Dawson's questions. So if I understand this correctly, if Curtis performs on, I'm just going to throw a arbitrary number out there, 50 tests in month X, and next year, the next month, there would be a requirement for 75 or 100. They just continue to do this for the $2,500 a month. And how does that number actually change, or does it change if it's just state that's mandating? I mean, do we as a parish say we need these many more tests this month, whatever? I mean, I'm a little confused myself.
No, these tests are required by the state, and the type of testing that's required and what you have to take, and even the frequency of that. Now, we perform a lot of testing ourselves for the daily chlorine test that we have to perform 7 days a week, every day throughout the whole year. There are certain requirements for a test that they are going to do based upon what the state requires them to do, and that's what we task them to do. So the numbers doesn't fluctuate on that doc. It's exactly what the state requires, and that's the service they provide for us.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 18, contract for medical services with Ty Gotro, FNP-BC, and Inmate Health Services to provide medical services to inmates at the jail, not to exceed $4,125 a month. Christy Burnett. Hi, Christy. Thank you for being here.
Is this a renewal of contract for Ty Gotro, our nurse practitioner that goes out to the jail one time a week and sees all the inmates for sick call. And he is on call for the weekends and holidays and at night if there's an issue to arise.
Motion.
Have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert. Second by Councilman Cagnolotti. Any questions, gentlemen? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Item number 19, the monthly contracts report. Ms. Sandra? Good to see you.
Good evening. You have before you the list of contracts that were entered into in the month of May. I'll give you a minute to review, and if you have any questions.
Gentlemen, does anyone have any questions?
I got one.
Councilman Joseph?
Yeah. Mars Engineering, and I see they have a recreation, for the recreation department, what they, actually, for 75, what, we have a project just for you, Councilman, Turner?
That would be no.
Yeah, they're still working with the,
So yes, that would be a yes.
Okay, all right. Okay. That's all I want to know.
That's working
Right.
inside the gym.
Okay, all right. I just know we didn't discuss nothing like that before, so I want.
Any other questions? Thank you for that report.
Thank you.
Item number 20, the budget amendment number 5, approval to introduce an ordinance to amend the 2016 budget. Ms. Dawn Gabbard.
Good evening. You have before you an ordinance for budget amendment number 5, which reads as follows. An ordinance to amend the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2016 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension, adopted by the Ascension Parish Council on the 19th day of November, 2015. Section 1. The Ascension Parish Council hereby ordains that the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2016 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension is hereby amended, approved, and appropriated as follows. Operating budget, Recreation Fund, revenues and other financing sources. Transfer in from the Oak Grove Construction Fund, $42,000. Bayou Terrace Bond Fund, expenditures and other financing uses. Transfer out to Road Construction Fund to close out this fund, $24,500. The Construction Fund, Road Construction Fund, revenue and other financing sources. Transfer in from Bayou Terrace Bond Fund, $24,500. Oak Grove Construction Fund, expenditures and other financing uses. Transfer out to the Recreation Fund to close out this fund for $42,000.
I need to hear a motion, gentlemen, that we
Motion.
approve this ordinance.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Randy Cluott, second by Councilman Cagnolotti, that we approve this motion, that we approve this ordinance. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 21, the sales and use tax report.
Good evening. You have before you your regular sales and use tax report. This is for the collection month of April, which is based on March sales. Our 3 sales taxing districts are listed, and in the middle column, the proceeds from these 3, you can see that all 3 month-to-month comparisons are up to, or due rather, to the large audits. Some large audits received on the east side of the river, and that's pretty obvious if you look at East Ascension drainage. Compared to the 2016 budget on the right side, all 3 districts exceed our budget as of this point in time. If you look on page 2, you have the bar chart that uses just the 1-cent sales tax. It's just a depiction of, to show you generally where your sales and use taxes are collected in what sectors. And you can see the consumer retail, motor vehicles, and the petrochemical industry are all up. It's business to business that is down a little bit, which shows that we're mostly in production right now instead of construction, especially on the west side of the river. And the next chart is the pie chart, once again using the 1 cent sales tax. This is year to date. And it can show you those sectors, the percent of collections. Petrochemical industry and their major suppliers are at 58%. Consumer retail is at 27%. Motor vehicles, 10% of collections, and the business to business is 5% of collections. The next chart on the last page shows all three of our sales tax agencies, the East Ascension Drainage, the 1 cent sales tax district, and the half-cent sales tax district. And this is a 9-year comparison, and the yellow represents the collections at this time of the year to date, and the red is the total collections for the prior years. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Gentlemen, do you have any questions? Any objections? Hearing none. Oh, I didn't need a motion. I'm sorry. Thank you, Ms. Quinn. I don't know where I went with that. I apologize for that. I was on a roll. All right, item number 23, the bid items. Now we'll, pardon? Did I miss one?
22.
I'm trying to get Doc out of here.
Thank you.
Item number 22, the revenue and expenditure report. I apologize, Amanda. I didn't mean to miss you.
Good evening. Before you are the financial reports for the month of April 2016. On page 1, total revenues are at 24.57% at 33.33% of the year. The funds highlighted in green are funds that are under the budget by 5% or more. There are 14 operating funds and 10 capital funds that fall within that category, and on page 4 of the report, there's an explanation for those funds. On page 2, total expenditures are at 24.88% at 33% of the year. The funds highlighted in green are funds that are over the budget by 5% or more, and there are 10 operating funds and 5 capital funds. And on page 5 of the report is an explanation for these funds. On page 3 are charts that compare both year-to-date revenue and expenditures for budget, revenue and expenditures for operating, which is your yellow bar, and capital, which is your blue bar, to the budget, which is the green bar. The last page of the report is a listing of all checks issued in April, over 100,000, and the total of the checks are $864,691.01. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer at this time.
Any questions, gentlemen? All right, thank you very much. Now we'll get to item number 23. The bid items, Ms. Jones.
On April 14, 2016, the Purchasing Department received 3 quotes for the Lorry Park Walking Path Lighting Project. After review, the Purchasing Department and Engineering Department recommend accepting the lowest responsive quote submitted by Gonzales Electric Service, and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this service.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
A motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, second by Councilman Oliver Joseph. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On April 14, 2016, the Purchasing Department received 3 proposals for the selection of an enterprise resource planning system consultant. After review, the non-engineering selection committee recommends accepting the proposal submitted by Baker Tilly and to authorize the parish president to begin contract negotiations for this service. And they are listed in the sorted by ranking.
Mr. Dawson.
Can somebody tell me what this is?
That's the company that's actually helping us go through the selection of the financial program. You know, this council.
Oh, the software update?
Yeah, the software,
Okay,
financial program, that kind of thing.
okay.
I can answer any more questions if you have.
I just did.
Brandon's available. You got anything else? Gentlemen, does anyone have any questions that Brandon might can answer for you? Have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson,
Second.
second by, who was that? Councilman Kluwat. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Thank you, Brandon.
On April 21st, 2016, the Purchasing Department received 3 proposals for the selection of a consulting services for the study of the Ascension Parish Government Compensation Plan. After review, the Non-Engineering Selection Committee recommends accepting the proposals submitted by SSA Consultants and to authorize the parish president to begin contract negotiations for this service. And again, they're listed by rankings.
So moved.
Have a motion by Councilman Oliver Joseph,
Second.
second by Councilman Cagnalotti. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. I do have a question, Mr. President. In light of this contract, will we be proceeding to an operational and organizational effectiveness study that we discussed early in the year? That was certainly proposed, and I'm curious if we're going to be moving quickly to that.
Yeah, well, we are, and we're just trying to get the pay scale stuff straight for us, and then we're going to move into that, give you all a full report on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Jones, proceed. Thank you.
On June 2nd, 2016, the Purchasing Department received 2 bids for the DPW building retrofit. After review, the Department of Public Works and MWL Architect recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by M&H Builders and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this project.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Kluwat, second by
I got
Councilman
discussion.
Dawson,
I got a question.
and now for questions. Mr. Kluwat?
Yes, do we have the scope of this project? Mr. Rue?
Mr. Enlow?
Mr. Enlow?
Good evening, members of the board. The scope is to renovate the DPW East Building on Church Point. I'm not familiar too much with architectural work, but it's a light architectural refitting and retrofitting of the building to make the space more usable for the employees that we have over there now and to make it a little more efficient. We've got a lot of old wiring, old HVAC, old doors that kind of need to be adjusted, and it seems like it's going to be a good little project.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mike. Having a motion and a second, do I have any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes.
On May 17, 2016, the Purchasing Department received 4 proposals for a strategic consulting and advocacy service. After review, the Non-Engineering Selection Committee recommend accepting the proposals submitted by Guidry Associates and to authorize the parish president to begin contract negotiations for this service, and they are also listed by ranking.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Kulat, second by Councilman Johnson. Any questions? Mr. Satterley?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. This is just a, well, I guess it is a question. The score sheets for this particular RFP shows that one of the scorers for one of the companies who's not being recommended tonight was non-responsive. What exactly does that mean?
Mr. Dawson?
Yes. On this particular RFQ, RFQ, or request for proposal, it has specific things that it was asking the respondents to address. One is, and I have the RFP here, the consultant will provide intergovernmental strategic consulting and advocacy. They also talked about that they would have to be pursuing appropriation in the federal transportation, reauthorization of water resources. They would have to develop, relationships with our delegation. And in that particular proposal, there was no indication on how that was going to be done, and even history of how it was done in the past. It was basically a resume, okay? And it didn't indicate exactly what needed. The rest of the proposal shows specifically, addressing, the federal government, our federal delegation, our state delegation, and how they will propose it. One of the scores was kind of very focused on the state delegation and not so much the federal. So, of course, the others that had both components were scored higher. So, in all fairness, in my opinion, that when looking at that, a resume did not address and was non-responsive to the specific items that were requested in RFP.
So, so Ken, by non-responsive, and I didn't use your name, but I need to now to ask you, if you add the 3 scores of Ms. Pereira, Ms. LeBlanc, and Ms. Collins, it's 198. Does that mean you scored this company a 0?
I would have scored it. Non-responsive means it didn't respond according to the RFP.
So the answer is yes,
Yeah.
it's a 0.
Yeah.
Because that obviously drags it way, 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 way down if one score is not going to score it or give it a 0. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 24. Mr. Cagnolati says motion to adjourn. Second by Councilman Johnson. Thank you, gentlemen.